So we can take off our mask, I think. Heinrich, it's a pleasure to have you here. We've known each other since, I think, more than 20 years now. And looking back, I mean, at that time, I didn't even have a mobile phone. So there was a huge technology evolution since then, or almost revolution. I'm thinking about rise of the commercial internet, e-commerce, smartphones, what have you. And all this time, you've been working at the forefront of technology. So can you tell us a little bit about you, what you did, and what you're currently doing?
So Stefan, first of all, it's a great pleasure to talk to you about basically the last 20 years. And I think we have a chance to speak about the next couple of years as well. It's been a time that has been exceeded all expectations. So we both always liked to look ahead, what comes next. And of course, I had a feeling 20 years ago that interesting things would come. At that time, when I just left consultancy, went into a German-Chinese biotech startup, understood the drive in China. Things got coupled already with IT, with computers, software, and the drive in China was amazing. And I did not expect that we would sit today, 20 years later, in Berlin, actually a couple of 100 meters far away from Ernst-Reuter-Platz, where another amazing story started to happen. So 2004 was the year when I came to Berlin. At that time, member of an experiment, to be frank. So Deutsche Telekom put a couple of people into Berlin and said, okay, it's obviously the German capital, but there's not much going on. So we just had the bubble burst. The startup ecosystem basically had disappeared in Germany. The Neue Markt had disappeared. Berlin had almost 20% unemployment. There was not much going on, and people looked at me and said, Heinrich, what are you doing in Berlin? There's nothing to do for you. But in my back, I had this push and the drive, which I observed from the Chinese side. And I knew that on the technology side, there are a couple of things going on. So what I observed in these 16 years is the emergence of a software ecosystem that truly has exceeded all my expectations. It was the mixture of smart people from universities. It was public-private partnerships like the one from Deutsche Telekom, also SAP came, and a few notorious investors like Hasso Plattner, who started to put his first 100 million into Potsdam in Berlin, and also surprised everybody. And people told him, Hasso, what are you doing here? Investing in Potsdam and Berlin? What is this? But I think these three ingredients, competence in IT and software, the commercial orientation towards creating business out of it with established companies, and number three, notorious investment, gave the kickstart to this ecosystem where we sit in right now. I became the head of global R&D of Deutsche Telekom, so this experiment emerged into a substantial thing with subsidiaries in Israel, in the Silicon Valley, and a couple of other European cities, and I now consider myself as a veteran of the innovation miracle in Berlin and also in Beersheba. I'm, when I speak German, I still have this Bavarian accent from the south of Germany. But I'm
something you share.
But I'm a new Berliner by heart and deeply connected with probably 3,000 people who are now in the ecosystem, building startups that fortunately survived the Corona shock so far. People in high tech and people in business, working on this new technology shock which we are just facing. So last one was software driven, clearly, and next one is coming around driven by cloud, by connectivity, by the possibilities of AI, by 5G, and these are order of magnitude changes which I think will even accelerate everything which we have seen. So that's you see, I have a hard time summing it up because so much happened. But that's kind of the rough picture of 15, 16 years ago, and where we sit now in a really powerful software ecosystem.
So you were one of the visionaries for this ecosystem. I mean, you mentioned capital and all the other ingredients, but I think it also needs the visionaries who come to a place where there's not much and build it into something that's really relevant today?
I think it clearly felt like this. So as a pioneer, you are not the majority. People look at you and they're a little bit skeptic and say, what are these people doing here? Like there was Aram Davidson from Hasselblattner Ventures, people from the universities, Professor Albayrak and these folks, and there were not many. So we could see that from a technology point of view, many things were coming together, but truly we were surprised by the effect ourselves. So we would not have thought that last year something like 3 billion euros would be poured into a city where the equivalent number in 2004 was just 20 million.
So you already mentioned the talk of today. It's about connectivity, so we're talking about 5G, and it's about making sense of data, AI, also revolutionizing the interfaces. Can you explain a bit why these shifts are so relevant and so massive?
So here's the thing. I was always thinking about when are changes irreversible? And one of the insights I came about is when it's about orders of magnitude, when it's about a factor of 10, a factor of 100 in efficiency, in performance, in customer value, in the ratio of performance and price, you cannot beat this by incremental improvement. So whoever tries to compete with the capabilities that we have now with incremental change will fail. And this order of magnitude change comes from the possibilities we have in the infrastructure. So 5G is a very important component of that, plus the cloud possibilities and all these sensors that are distributed. And just when you look at the technical parameters, when we have setups with autonomous systems, with augmented reality, with artificial intelligence, you have data rates with a factor of 1,000 more than before. And of course you can do something with the data, but it's obvious that a factor of 1,000 doesn't just pass without an effect. And of course this massive effect will change the entire economic situation, and hope we are going to talk about the possibilities as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the first sight, especially for our viewers, this sounds very threatening because it's huge technology investments made by giants like Google, like Amazon, and the likes. But I mean, there's also small companies actually benefiting from these technologies. And can you talk a bit about how mid-sized, smaller companies can actually use these technologies to benefit from this order of magnitude?
Right, so I'm very happy to share this. In the past few years, I've been working, number one, as CEO of a large consultancy, but also now as an advisory board member and as an advisory board member of an investment company. So I'm looking very carefully at these mid-sized companies. And what I found is that the average age is 130 years of established companies. So that gives me a lot of hope, because 130 years is old, no question. But it's definitely so old that these companies have found a way to make the transition between political systems from an empire where there was still an emperor to the first republic, then made it through 2 world wars and so on. So I'm really confident that these companies will also find a way to tackle a technology shock. So that's first thing. Second thing is it's very much about the renovation of established companies. That's the European way of transformation, basically reinventing, renovating established companies. There is a startup ecosystem in Germany at many places, but it only accounts for 1% of employment and 1% of value, whereas in the US, every year, whereas in the US, 10% of the economy is reinvented. So obviously it's a different mechanism in Europe and in Germany. So that gives me confidence, and that's a positive view. Number 2, and there you're right, you need to do something. If this is what makes people afraid, then I'm sorry, right? So I mean, be afraid or don't be afraid, but use the possibilities to build up a digital equivalent, a digital twin, to position yourself to put yourself in a position to exploit the possibilities of digitization, of linking the systems with your suppliers, with your customers, to actually build alliances, partnerships, and so on. And number 2, to exploit and use new business models that are all as a service in a sense. So very, very few business models in the future will just be based on transactions, where you say, I have a physical product, I sell it, the risk goes to you. I think most of it, like we see today in software, will be as a service based, even in physical products. So I'm confident, but yes, everybody needs to do a lot. And I think these companies have done a lot in the past, so why not now?
Yeah. So we were talking about these technologies. Do you have a couple of examples where you think it's great use of these new technologies, be it 5G or AI?
So these two are elements of a set of 6. So that there's probably also augmented reality and autonomous systems, but they're all similar. And on the infrastructure side, also cloud, the connectivity part. Now, they have the following effect. Number one, 5G is not just the next generation after 4G, and as you imagine, I
it's not modular,
thought a lot about this as the head of R&D of Deutsche Telekom, and it's not only a new mobile, it's not a new radio interface, a new antenna technology between your handset and the antenna. No, it's a new architecture also for the entire back end, and for the first time, it will give guaranteed qualities in delay, in packet loss. So before it was all statistical. So your packet could come, 200 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds, 50 milliseconds, on average 200. This is not good for industrial purposes and applications. With 5G,
I mean, for us, for the industry,
right?
Transmitting video signals is the big thing.
Right.
And if you can get rid of cables finally, that would be a big. Really major thing for the digital signage industry.
Exactly, and you need this discrete qualities. You need to be able to say, okay, the delay is exactly something, and and that's the new thing about the 5G architecture, that you can actually have these qualities in a guaranteed form, and of course the performance parameters are better by a factor of 100, 1000, and there's also one big thing that. The computing power goes to the base stations. And this is important for everybody designing products. If you're smart, you put part of the processing power into the edge, into the cloud, because you save the cost. And the second thing is, applications are possible that are not possible before, because you have lower delay, you have the cars driving autonomously.
Do you have an example for that?
So there's just in front of us, there's the biggest metropolitan real-life test site for autonomous driving between Brandenburg Gate and Ernst-Reuter-Platz. For mid-sized companies, I believe very much in maintenance applications, augmented reality, where you have in quasi real time the solution to the work projected in front of you, of when you have to repair a wind turbine on the Canary Islands, for example. So either you send a technician there by plane, or you have augmented reality glasses on site, and you send a multi-purpose technician there who gets the information in real time. And this is something for globally active Mittelstands economy, like the German and European one. That's something that all producers of physical goods will use. And there I see a convergence of everything we have in media, like around here, and physical products. And this is what we'll see in many instances, the convergence of the discrete physical manufacturing and the media industry, and I think the future is hybrid. So these two things coming together.
That's a very interesting point you mentioned, because so far the digital signage industry has been very much focused on retail, some offices. But you're just mentioning there will be industry use cases for digital media, digital signage as well.
Right, very much so, and it's all hybrid. So retail, there's a London company. I'm on the advisory board, and it's their core belief that the physical presence of people and the digital offer are an ideal combination which is unmatched so far. And of course, as a human being, you are at a location. You have acoustic perceptions, visual perception. You have signs that are so far disconnected from your interaction. And it's obvious that you need to connect this and be very specific. I mean, especially now in Corona times, right? Yeah. I'm wondering why we don't even have this right now to manage these long waiting lines in front of some shops, right? So for some purpose, for some reason, people need sneakers now, right? So in front of the sneaker stores, you have huge lines. You know, why isn't this already organized in a combination of digital signage and of you know, sensing how long the line is and giving you a recommendation, you know, like come in 2 hours and then the line is gone.
That's not a question of technology, because the technology is there for that. It's really a matter of how do you communicate that, how do you use the data that you're
we talk
there.
About the presence. That's true. Yeah.
So we talked a lot about current state. Let's take a look into the future. What's your view on the next 5 years, and then probably also what's for you the next big revolution beyond that?
I think that what we have now as Internet of Things and artificial intelligence is just an intermediary stage. So software industry works on doing everything real time. But that's just one step before projection. So what actually retailers, everybody wants to know is, you know, what will be your decision in 3 months from now? What will we buy, and what will be available? What will be a good price for that? And actually, you can do this in theory, and also on a prototypical level. That people take as many data as possible from the entire value chain, from your behavior, and predict. And we will see this in the big e-commerce platforms that, of course, already now they go into prediction, and the winner will be whoever has the best prediction model, because they have you know, better bargaining position in contract negotiations, because they know already what will be next. So 2 things. Number 1, from a technology side, integrate as many data as possible and analyze in order to extract patterns to know your decision, our decision as customers, as, you know, responsible people in companies. And the second thing is the supply chain. So value chain, I don't think it will be a chain in the future, because we need resilience. It's more community. Having as many data available from this community about sustainability and potential risks, resilience, is toilet paper running out? I mean, you know, a silly thing. But
it could also be something like energy consumption, status of screens.
Right, and also the question, is my electric car really you know, environmental friendly, or are all the rare metals destroying the environment in South America? Who knows? But in the future we will know. And these are the 2 important elements: the prediction of what users will decide on, and decision makers will decide on, and, you know, what happens in the supply chain, making it transparent and also accessible for these decisions.
So, thank you very much, Heinz, for this interview. I could go on for much longer with you and talk about the future, but unfortunately we only have limited time. If you have a solution for that, I'd go for it.
Thank you very much as well. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, especially here in Berlin.
Thank you.